It's now my enormous pleasure to introduce your guest speaker today. Andy Slaughter's experience is towering, not just as a former barrister and current Shadow Minister for Justice, but also as a former head of local government, a field in which a great many CILEx members work. He was in fact the first ever leader of a local council to take the title Executive Mayor before joining Parliament. As one of the team who have been holding the government to account on their legal aid and judicial review proposals, he has become a friend to CILEx, and we are truly appreciative of him being here today. Please welcome Shadow Minister for Justice, Andy Slaughter.
Thank you very much. Can I first of all thank Stephen and Diane and the Council for inviting me here, and to thank all of you for applauding us into the room. That's not really treatment I'm used to. I'm part of a... I know it wasn't for me, but I'll pretend for today that it was. I'm part of a profession, politicians, that are used to being jeered at in the street now, so that's quite a nice, like a warm bath to begin this afternoon. I am very pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be back in Bedford, which is a place I've known. I've got many friends here for about 30 years. In fact, I tried unsuccessfully to be the Labour candidate for Bedford about 20 years ago, which perhaps shows that I like Bedford more than it likes me. But I remember describing it as my second home at the time when I was trying to ingratiate myself with people. That was before the term second home took on a rather more dubious meaning for MPs. Is she still there at the moment, or is she gone yet? I don't know. I'm delighted to be invited here by CILEx, who I have, as Stephen said, been working closely with during my 3.5 years as Shadow Justice Minister, and that is a long time in politics, I can tell you, to keep one job. I don't know if that's a punishment or a reward. And the fact that I've witnessed during that time both the 50th anniversary of the Institute and the granting of the Royal Charter shows how fast your profession is changing and growing. Most of all, I'm very happy to be here to celebrate with the graduates and fellows, their friends and families, this important landmark in your careers. Now, I have 10 minutes or so. Worry about the or so, because I've just spent the last 2 weeks leading for the opposition on the latest criminal justice bill. We have one a year, where I've been speaking for up to 4 hours a day. So I will keep an eye on the clock. But do bear in mind that in Parliament we are doing our bit to create new laws every week to keep us in business, but also you. So I hope you appreciate that they are nothing more than criminal justice. So I'm going to limit myself to 2 themes, where I think the legal profession is going at the moment and what role I see for legal executives in that changing landscape. I can speak from some experience. I left university in the early 1980s with a non-law degree and tried a variety of jobs. Rather embarrassingly, they're all listed in the graduate brochure. My parents left school at, I think, 13 and 14 respectively, and I don't think I'd ever met a lawyer until I joined the Labour Party, and then I found it was stuffed full of them. And it was actually through that personal contact that I not only became interested in studying law, but, not to put too fine a point on it, realised that if some of these people could do it, so could I. I'm sure that's an experience some of you share. So I was in my 30s before I qualified, and that made the saving up and also the breaking into the profession easier in some ways and more difficult in others, and I'm sure that's an experience that people here share. But I've never felt personally the divisions that still seem to bedevil the legal profession in some respects. I became a barrister and I practiced what is euphemistically called common law, which meant I was in 11 subject area teams in my chambers at one stage. And when I told my senior clerk that this seemed ambitious, he said, "Yes, sir, but you are the last choice in all of them." So anyway, I did have the opportunity to work with barristers and solicitors and chartered legal executives in many areas of law. I ended up practicing landlord and tenant and personal injury law, and I can honestly say that I often didn't know the background or qualifications of those instructing me, only their competence, and that many of the best lawyers I worked with, from an academic as well as a practical and client-focused perspective, were chartered legal executives. So I bring a completely open mind to my current job, and I've been pleased to support the changes the current government have made to liberalise and advance the role of chartered legal executives. I just think they could do more. On rights of audience, judicial appointments, ability to set up and run practices, we are going in the right direction, but we're going slowly. And this incremental change is all the more frustrating when the major upheavals and challenges that the whole profession is going through are set alongside it. You will have noticed just there that I said something nice about the government. I'd like to balance that by saying some less nice things, one or two. I know that tomorrow's guest speaker, who you don't have the pleasure of hearing, is the Justice Minister, my current opposite number, CILEx. And so the people who come tomorrow, I don't think you get any choice in the matter, will hear him, and the people who come today hear me. But hopefully we'll go away brainwashed one way or the other. And I say CILEx is a very decent man, but in total I've debated with at least 8 government justice ministers over the past 3.5 years. And that rapid turnover and the decision by both Chris Grayling and his predecessor Ken Clarke to sign up for, and they did sign up voluntarily, for over a third cut in their budget is having terrible consequences in fracturing the justice system. You all know the saying, I'm sure, a bit of a cliche, may you live in interesting times. Well, you're certainly entering or sticking with the legal profession in such times. I don't think qualification as a lawyer has ever been easy for anyone who did not have private wealth or an inside track. It was difficult 20 years ago when I qualified, but now both the process and the opportunity is incredibly restricted. And I say to you again, well done for coming thus far. But until very recently, if you did jump the hurdles and qualify, you could probably feel reasonably confident that you would make a living. Now, I'm not so sure. Consider the following recent facts. More than a quarter of the legal aid budget is being cut. This includes most of social welfare and family legal aid, and cuts in criminal fees of up to 30%. At the behest of the insurance industry, the selective introduction of Lord Justice Jackson's changes to civil costs means it's either more difficult to find a lawyer willing to take many civil cases, or the client will not take the risks of an adverse cost decision, or be put off with having to pay part of their damages, even if they win. Court fees are being hugely increased with the explicit aim of more than full cost recovery. Fees are payable for the first time in some tribunals, with the result that employment tribunal claims, for example, have fallen off a cliff, 80% down in a matter of months. Criminal defendants, under the bill I've just been opposing in the Commons, will now be liable to pay for the cost of trial if convicted. Over 150 courts have closed, and the list is growing every week. My party regards this as a sustained attack on the justice system, and while it is not the job of government to find work for lawyers, preserving the rule of law is a sacred trust equal to preserving democracy itself. You would think any government would realise that, especially as we are about to celebrate 800 years of Magna Carta, but it's a lesson lost on the current Lord Chancellor. He's the first not to have a legal qualification for over 300 years, but he still swears this oath. I know you're going to swear your own oath in a short period of time. This is what the Lord Chancellor says on taking office. I will respect the rule of law, defend the independence of the judiciary, and discharge my duty to ensure the provision of resources for the efficient and effective support of the courts for which I am responsible. Well, perhaps it's not too late for Chris Grayling to consider qualifying as a chartered legal executive, because he's not living up to his oath at present. He's on the record as wanting to distance the UK from the European Convention on Human Rights and repeal the Human Rights Act. Certain areas of law which protect the citizen from executive power, like judicial review, are being severely restricted. Secret courts are becoming the norm, with closed material procedures available in all civil courts, increasing concerns about the Court of Protection, and even some magistrates' courts now to sit in private. The cuts to HMCTS are so deep that the capacity for courts to operate effectively must now be in doubt. And this is true of the CPS, interpreters and enforcement, as well as the basic function of courts now overloaded with litigants in person. Law enforcement, probation and prisons are similarly the victims of draconian cuts. Above all, the scale of the cuts in the solicitor's contract and barrister's fees and the way the government has negotiated these to divide the profession within itself is deeply destructive and cynical. And we've seen that happening, and I'm sure this gives comfort to the government that we have the Law Society split, we have the bar now split in terms of the criminal bar, and we have even the coalitions that are coming together to try and unite the profession now falling out with each other. Now, if you're a strategist in the MOJ, that probably all looks very good, but I don't think it looks very good for the profession. I don't think it looks very good for the public, and it doesn't help us either. What I want to do, and what the other members of my team want to do, is to sit down with the professions collectively as well as individually and say, yes, these are tough financial times, but let's try and find alternative ways of making the budget work which do not have these draconian and disabling effects on the justice system and do not weaken the professions in the way that they are. I'm not putting you off, am I? Right, one more piece of bad news, and before I get on to some more uplifting stuff. Government, and here I mean successive governments, not just the present one, has been very poor at opening up the legal profession to all on the basis of talent, irrespective of background, education, or advantage. One Justice Minister recently said the legal profession looked like early 20th century or late 19th century Britain, with major social mobility and diversity problems. The former Cabinet Minister Alan Milburn's report last year into social mobility disclosed over 2/3 of senior barristers are privately educated compared to only 7% of the general public. In Europe, only Azerbaijan and Armenia have fewer female professional judges than England and Wales. We've got one Supreme Court judge, 11% of the Court of Appeal, 16% of the High Court, 18% of circuit judges, 24% of the judiciary overall are women. And I use that example because it's fairly easy to see what the percentage should be. But if you look at any other comparators, you look at race or religion or disability, and the statistics will be as bad or worse. And I'm not lecturing you on that because MPs are just as bad. There are 22% of women in Parliament. If you go back before 1997, it was less than 10%. If you go back before 1987, it never got above 5%. I'm apologising for the appalling record of politicians in not building the three branches of the Constitution, legislative, executive and judicial, in the image of the country that they serve. So what then is the good news? Well, you are, I think, is the answer to that. CILEx doesn't conform to those depressing norms. 3/4 of chartered legal executives are women, 1/3 are from BME backgrounds, 2% had parents who were lawyers. Those are familiar statistics to you, but don't let familiarity inure you to the massive changes that promises for the legal profession as we move forward. The changes that alternative business structures, reform of the regulatory and financial organisation of the profession mean are opportunities to make it more representative. We will see many more chartered legal executives as advocates, judges, partners and heads of law firms over the next few years. And the other good news is that, speaking for my party at least, we are committed to make that sea change happen. As a party and as a government, we will make diversity in the legal profession a central aim, not just because it's the right thing to do in itself, but because it makes the legal system more legitimate, more effective, and more transparent to the public. It will start to undo the damage that the past 4 years have inflicted. The thing I like most about my constituency, which is Hammersmith in West London, is that half the population was born outside the UK and over 100 languages are spoken there. That gives a depth of knowledge and insight that most communities and countries can never hope to achieve. My boss, Sadiq Khan, the next Lord Chancellor, I hope, has said diversity, actually I wouldn't mind having another one in between, but that's another, has said that diversity in the legal system is central and fundamental to the changes we wish to make in government. So that is why I am most happy to be here today. Happy for each and every one of the newly qualified members of the Chartered Institute, the graduates and fellows, but happy also that you will be part of our project to rebuild better and stronger than it was our great English legal system. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Slaughter. Thank you. It is a shame that you can't be here on both days, so you get one vision and another. But can I assure you that from the political perspective, and CILEx as an organisation has to keep an eye on all the political perspectives, President and office holders and council members will be listening attentively tomorrow as well. But today was a very interesting resume, if I think it's probably the term, of the difficulties that you know probably better than I do, because you are on the coalface of practice, but as well as the opportunities that are out there. It isn't just your council or myself writing in the journal every month telling you about those opportunities. You've heard today about opportunities and expectations of you all. So thank you very much indeed. Can we just have one more round of applause, please?